if you share a business with someone who isn't necessarily, they're not divorcing your partner, do they still have to disclose everything or provide, all the financials?
The bottom line is yes. If they're a co-owner on a business, they have just as much access to the business accounts as the partner does. So at the end of the day, it's the same thing as if the IRS audits the business. If the IRS audits the business, it's not like the one partner can say, oh, well, I'm not going to turn over the receipts to the IRS. I'll just let the IRS cream us with penalties and interests. Obviously that would be a no deal on the other partner if they have a functioning brain. So it would be the same thing in regards to a child support or spousal support proceeding. At the end of the day, the one partner would not want to be assessed with too much child support or spousal support. So they would want to turn that documentation over, because here's the consequence to that non-custodial parent or whoever owns the business. So if the custodial parent is the one that owns the business, and I have had those cases. In fact, I have a case pending right now where the custodial parent owns a daycare and has to turn over all of the documentation in regards to the daycare. If they do not, the court can impute income to them. In fact, the court has the power, if you own your own business, to say we're going to treat the overall gross income of the business as your income. And so if your business is grossing $250,000 a year and you say, well, gee, but that's not what I make. I have business expenses of $150,000 a year, and therefore my in effect net income or profit is only $100,000. That is your burden to prove to the court. The court only takes the tax return as the starting point for the analysis, the jumping off point. It's the same thing with if the IRS audits you. They're not going to take your return and say, oh, okay, you say you make gross income of $250 and you have business expenses of $150. Okay, we'll take your word for it. Thank you. Have a good day. No, of course, the IRS is going to say you have to come in with all of the receipts, bills, invoices, et cetera, corroborating all of those business expenses, because it's not unheard of if somebody owns their own business to spend business income on personal expenses on the one hand, or just make up business expenses and claim that they have business expenses that they don't actually incur. So certainly in the child support and spousal support context, the other side is that's almost routine. They're going to demand those receipts and those invoices. And I've had far too many cases where the person that owns the business says, oh, okay, I'll document my business expenses by simply giving you my bank statements. Here's the problem with that. That's not good enough. Reason for that is let's say they have something on their business bank statement that says, I went to Staples and I bought $500 worth of supplies for the business. Okay, but how do we know what you bought? The only thing that the bank statement will reflect is that line that says you went to Staples and you purchased $500 worth of something at Staples. So that's why the actual receipts and bills and invoices are essential, because the other side gets to see exactly what you purchased. Potentially at a deposition, they can go into why you purchase certain items for a business when it might be evident that you don't really need it. For instance, in this case that I have in regards to the daycare, the person put on transportation expenses. Now, it's conceivable that they may be spending something if they're bringing the children to, certain field trips or whatever else. And that's worthy of additional exploration. perhaps at a deposition to really delve into those issues. But most daycares don't really transport the kids, especially in the person's personal vehicle, from one place to another. It just doesn't really make too much sense, especially if the kids are like 1, 2, 3 years old, that they would be going out on field trips. So to have those types of recordations, it almost seems like they're just spending business money on their personal vehicle, claiming it as a business deduction so they get the deduction on their taxes, but then they're going to want to try and say in the child support and spousal support case that that's not actually a personal expense, and therefore that should be deducted off their income as well as a business expense, and it's not.